I mentioned off the top, I'm so interested in Lachie Neale because his form this year, it hasn't wavered the last month, has it? He's been sensational, be very fair to say, and in these conditions tonight, he's going to be pivotal in that midfield matchup. But it's a busy weekend for the former Brisbane Lions skipper. He'll be meeting with St Kilda coach and his former Dockers coach, Ross Lyon. He's got a meeting with Essendon planned as well. Mitch Cleary's reporting this afternoon. So how he can remain focused on the three-peat and Brisbane finishing as high as possible is fascinating. And Beaver, being a Saints man, I want to play to you Ross Lyon's comments on Lachie Neale a bit earlier today.
I regularly catch up with Lachie in town with a close friend, and to be honest, that close friend will be there as well. We've got a mutual friend. And then there'd been no preliminary discussions or anything like that, except clearly it was in the AFL landscape. And I'd simply describe it as the normal dinner with both people window shopping. There's certainly no strong agenda from either side. I'm disappointed that Lachie's got a game tonight and playing great footy and for their club. And unfortunately, and even as a club, and probably on his side of the fence too, our dinners tend to remain confidential. So I know Lachie and I didn't talk about it, so that talks to other people with less integrity. But that's okay. I'll leave it at that.
So Ross Lyon, he was at his absolute best earlier today speaking at Moorabbin. Just a bit of window shopping. Is he the right fit for the St Kilda Footy Club, Lachie Neale?
Well, anytime you have the potential to add a dual Brownlow medalist to your list, then that's obviously going to make you a better side. Is he the right age demographic? That's a different question. I mean, St Kilda, until last off-season, had heavily invested in the draft for 4 or 5 years. They then went shopping last year. Even after going shopping so successfully at the end of last year, they were quite bullish, Gubby Allen and some other people close to the club, to say, we're not done yet. We've the way we've structured our salary cap, we can still go again. Now, do they want to add a guy who's, still at the peak of his powers and still on what you watch currently, thinking there's no reason why he can't get another 3 really strong years of footy out? Who knows? He might want to be like a Craig Bradley and play until or Michael Tuck, play until he's 38, 39, 40. They are playing later into their 30s. So it's still a toss of the coin for me. At the same time, he's then got to decide on the Saints, but there's clearly a very close relationship going back to the Dockers days between him and the current St Kilda coach.
I would be very confident that he'll get those 3 years out at a very high standard too. And it's not even only what he does on the ground on game day, but what he will bring to someone like a St Kilda or Essendon or groups like that, Collingwood even still, with the senior players that they've had around. But you just hear the professionalism where he gets to with his football. You can't have enough of those people within the walls of your footy club.
He'd have to be the player that fumbles the least across the competition.
Agreed.
He's so incredibly clean, and it speaks to year on year on year of focus, as you say, on footy fundamentals, which is the core of what ultimately becomes a multi-premiership, multi-Brownlow winning career.
Just in terms of his focus, this weekend couldn't have worked out any better for him. Brisbane play the first game of round 17. They play the last game of round 18, and it's a home game. So after tonight, they've got a 10-day break. Their next game's the Sunday twilight encounter against Essendon. No disrespect to the Bombers, but the Lions could probably win that half blindfolded at the Gabba on Sunday week. Yeah. So he's going to spend, at least 2 or 3 days in Victoria, the weekend in Victoria. Correct. So it's worked out perfectly for him. It's not like there's a 5 or 6 day turnaround and we're all saying, what about his preparation and that? He can go shopping, in inverts, can't he?
And I'd love to hear our listeners' thoughts on Lachie Neale and what he could bring to the club, Meg, but also where is the right fit? So St Kilda, he's got a chance to be the missing piece in a breakthrough and historic premiership. At Collingwood, if he was to choose Collingwood, he'd be playing in front of crowds of 60, 70,000 each week at the MCG, which is an almighty lure. And then we'll recall the comments of Brad Scott the night that he was sacked, speaking on agenda setters, saying that Essendon have a war chest and heaps of money to go after a player. So he could be that coaching, playing coach kind of player for that Essendon midfield. It's interesting, Dean Solomon, I was at the hangar earlier this morning when he was going through his weekly press conference, and he was also asked about what Lachie Neale could bring to the Essendon Football Club.
I wasn't aware of the conversation with Lachie, with Brad, but obviously become aware. And I think it's a great thing. I think our club being proactive in that space to bring in some mature age, players, talent that can support this young group is a critical thing, and especially if the day-to-day habits within the football club are at a high level, they're the role models that this young group needs to learn off. So I think Matty Rosa and his team are doing a good job, and they're pretty proactive in that space.
Dean Solomon earlier today. If you look at the three clubs that have been mentioned over the last 24 hours, some supporters might say, but would he be taking the place of a young kid that we want to get games into? I'd say probably not. Like at the Saints, Jack McRae, who hasn't been in the greatest of form, second year of a 3-year deal. They got him across from the Bulldogs after a stellar career. So they'd sort of be targeting, is that the sort of player whose place he is taking? Collingwood, as we know, how much longer is Scott Pendlebury and Steele Sidebottom going to continue for? Now, remember, we're talking about a guy in Lachie Neale who is 34. And then the Bombers, well, do any of us expect that Zach Merritt's still going to be there next year?
As much chance of the sun coming out tonight, Beaver.
Thank you. And there's even now talk, is Darcy Parish going to look for a fresh start? So there's sort of almost similar type pieces that Lachie Neale, if he joined any of those three clubs, would be replacing.
Certainly, and I don't think any of those clubs, nor even their supporter bases, really are going to kick up a stink, say, about someone of his skill, his ability, and what he might bring to that club for all the reasons that we've discussed so far tonight. And ultimately, I think it's a motivating factor. You bring someone of A-grade, exceptional talent in, and yes, those young players will still fight for the position in the team. There are 23 players that play each week, so there are spots there if you're good enough, and you've got that top-end talent to protect your development, to guide your development, and to hopefully push your club forward. A
real quick one, because I know we've got to take a break and get to James Riley, who will be joining us shortly. But this has been so widely reported this week, and the openness of the meetings. We'll see Lachie Neale, no doubt, interviewed after tonight's match, and the question's going to come, what are you up to this weekend? Mm-hmm. Are we at a point in time where Lachie can say in that post-game interview, I am meeting with a couple of clubs, and there's a real chance I won't be playing at the Brisbane Lions next year, but I want to win a premiership as much as I did 2 years ago with this group? Are we mature enough as an industry yet for a player to say, yep, I'm leaving at season's end?
No.
No? Oh, see, I think the public responds most to authenticity. So I feel like any denial of that happening this weekend, when it's been so widely reported, when it's understood to be happening, would give more questions than if he were to say, frankly, yes, I am, and this is what I'm open to, and I back my form in, I back my ability in. But I do think it's an interesting reflection on where the footy public is at and the media is at in terms of our ability to recognise the individual's right to pursue whatever they need to contract-wise, and yet we still have those values of loyalty and judgment about how a player chooses to conduct their business and the motivating factors for them to go home, leave, or stay.
Yeah, we're certainly in a much different paddock to the NRL, aren't we, in
Big
terms
time.
of, like, they can a year out say, yeah, at the end of this contract, they'll already say the club that I'm actually moving to. At the end of the day, I still would be surprised and wonder why Lachie Neale wants to leave Brisbane. Set aside his personal situation. We know his ex-wife and kids are back in Perth, which sort of adds to the intrigue as to why would he want to move to Melbourne, the city, as opposed to the football club. And who knows, if the Demons stuck their hands up as well. But it makes it a more fascinating puzzle as to why he's in Brisbane. They're still going to be a contender for mine, the Lions, for the next 2 or 3 years. The family's in Perth, and we're talking about moving to a Melbourne club. It's somewhat bizarre.
I think his old man still lives up in Hamilton in the Western District of Victoria, right near the South Australian border. So there is that family tie, I guess, to Victoria. And who wouldn't want to play at the MCG every other week, Beaver?
Jeff, good evening to you.
Good evening. I read in The Australian today that the ARL have just signed or are about to sign a contract for $5.3 billion over the next 7 years, which makes their fee surpass that of the AFL. And I was wondering whether that might sting the AFL into competing against the ARL in terms of for the grand final numbers by shifting their grand final to a similarly competitive time rather than leaving it in the afternoon.
Jeff, that's a really fascinating point. So the AFL, obviously, they've locked in daytime at grand finals for this year and next year, 2:30 p.m. first bounces. But it'll be certainly something when the AFL looks at this and all of the commentary around the TV deal that the NRL signed this round, as Jeff alludes to, has blown the AFL's deal out of the park. And obviously the commentary around these comes to, well, this could be the last big traditional big broadcast deal. The other weeds of this one, we're going to see the NRL overtake the AFL for the number of teams in the competition by 2030. So as the AFL slowly but surely tries to get its team up in Tasmania, which is still a provisional licence, by 2030, there's going to be 20 teams in the NRL, believe it or not, while we'll only just be in year 2 of Tasmania in a 19-team competition. So the NRL at the moment, absolutely flying. As far as do we see a nighttime grand final on the back of this NRL TV deal, I wouldn't rule it out by 2032 when the current deal expires.
Jeff and Ed and Meg and listeners, I take the opposite view. I look at it just as natural progression. The AFL deal was signed in 2022, so 4 years ago, and that was $4.5 billion. So in the next 4 years, the NRL have been able to bump it up, and we're only, 2 years? This is the second year of a 7-year deal, so ours goes through until 2031. I would expect, so the AFL's next TV deal obviously is going to be before the NRL's next TV deal, and I would expect that then to completely dwarf this current $5.3 billion deal that's just been signed for the NRL.
And the thing with this deal that's been signed for the NRL, because it's the same broadcast partners at the moment, Channel 9 and Foxtel or DAZN, I was reading that the DAZN or Fox Sports offer is, I think it was twice what they offered in 2019 for the existing rights. So you know what that means for all of us paying consumers of KO? The subscriptions will probably continue to go up next year. So it will impact all of us, this NRL deal, whether we're Rugby League fans or not.
Jeff, thanks for your call. As I said, this is just the second season of a 7-year deal. So the AFL doesn't have to pivot at all on a day or night grand final. I mean, the money's locked in until 2031. And I just never take the argument that, yes, it is our biggest game, but it is only one game out of what we're up to, I think, 218 games we play a season now, 207 home and away games with the extra round, 2 wildcard finals, plus the 9 normal finals. I mean, that is a lot of football outside of the grand final. And is the grand final getting moved to under lights going to make all that much difference to eyeballs in the northern states?
Potentially. That's when you've got beaches to go to in Sydney and Queensland that you don't here in Victoria, so it might. But Joel, you played in Esquillian finals. Majority of them were nighttime finals because that's the way that the final structure is.
Well, Eddie, I mean, the way that I look at it too, you see these two best sides tonight, that on any given occasion, like they play 17 or 18 of their actual games throughout the year in this time slot. So you actually get quite used to it. So when you get back to daytime, the whole preparation, the whole sort of week leading out, it's quite different to anything that you've done throughout the year. So that's why, I argue that it should be sort of nighttime because the best sides understand these sort of conditions better than anyone else.
I know we've got to get to team news for Sheen Panel Service. Do you think the NRL, do you think Peter Volandy sits back in his office and says, yep, we've got to keep the NRL grand final at night so we get more eyeballs in Victoria?
Not at all.
No.
I don't think he'd care too much about what's happening this side of the
And
Murray.
I know what they say about the percentage of population that's in New South Wales and Queensland, but, I mean, we're making inroads in those states anyway.
So
big time in Queensland, absolutely. New South Wales, depends on what part of New South Wales you look at, but nowhere near as much as what we are Queensland.